You're obviously a beast, and I'm blessed to have developed a close relationship with you, communicate on a daily basis. But for those that don't have a close relationship with you, I'm excited for those individuals to get to know you a little bit better. I mean, you've made a significant impact not only on my life, but a lot of the people on this call and their life as well. And then also I'm excited to go over a few things in your vision with Pinnacle and what we want to do with it over the upcoming months and upcoming years.
I love it, dude.
So
Excited to be here. I want
to
to talk about though. Hold on. Caleb said that we got beef. What beef? What beef we got, bro?
We can't hear you.
What are you, a Cowboys fan or something? What's the beef?
Uh-oh.
Down sad if that's the case.
I don't know what happened to Caleb.
Caleb, he just throws down the gauntlet. We got beef and then disappears. I guess I won.
anyway, anyway, all right, Joe.
All right, sorry, Jonah.
To start things off, talk to us about what were you doing before you got into life insurance?
Yeah, dude. So I started in door-to-door sales. I'll give you guys the super fast version for those of you that don't know my story. I started up in door-to-door sales at 18. Sucked, like probably the worst. I probably had the worst first 90 days in direct sales that you could possibly have. I was working my butt off, activity over everything. I just could not figure it out. Like, dude, 90 days, I didn't make any sales. I made no money, literally no money. $0 in my first 3 months. And I just was so freaking stubborn that I didn't want to quit because I had like two of my friends started in the company the exact same day that I did. And like, I always had an outgoing personality. So I was kind of the guy that was always, the leader of the friend group. And these guys are just smashing me. And so I was just like, there's no way these guys have this figured out. And I don't. Like, it was just sheer power of will that I didn't want to quit. And then finally, dude, I remember, and this is kind of like, now I look back and there's a lesson here. The company I worked with, everyone worked Monday through Friday. And there were a few people that were like the best of the best. They always worked Saturdays. And so I reached out to the guys that were just crushing it. They always hit the top bonus. They were always killing it. And I was like, hey, can I work Saturdays with you guys and just come out and knock doors with you and try and like figure this out. And so, dude, I went out every Saturday for the first 3 months and I was knocking all day Saturdays, just optional day. And dude, I was out there on a Saturday. To give you perspective, it was in Chicago. I started the first week of January. I didn't make my first sale until April. Like, dude, it was like 70 some degrees when I got my first sale in Chicago. And dude, at that point, it just clicked. So if you're new and you're struggling, don't think that you're always going to struggle. Like,
it's a long time before for those of you that haven't been to Chicago, it takes a long time before January to 70 degrees is a tremendous period of time, especially.
Dude,
yeah, we just got through that.
My first day, this was in 2010. My first day, there was a crazy wild snowstorm in January. There was I think there was 26, 27 inches of snow. So I was knocking in 26 inches of snow my first day. My first sale was 70 some degrees in Chicago, for perspective. Anyway, I look back now and like, dude, it all kind of hit at once, in my head, and it finally clicked. And I'm wholly convinced that a couple things are true. Number one, if I didn't knock on the thousands of doors that I did in those 90 days, I never would have figured it out. If I would have quit in week 3 or week 6 or week 9, never would have figured it out. And I wouldn't be who I am today. And I wouldn't have been able to serve the tens of thousands of people, if you count clients, that have been reached through the organizations that I've been blessed to be a part of. So I think that's really critical. So not quitting before you figure it out. I always tell everybody, if you want to quit something, quit after you figure it out. If you figure something out and just decide that you hate it, well, then freaking quit. But you don't quit when before you figure something out. Now you're just a loser. You know what I mean? So I stuck with it, figured it out. Took me about a year to get into management. You know what I mean? Because you got to, I was learning the ropes, got into sales management, loved that, loved the idea of helping other people, training other people, recruiting other people, hiring other people. And then I'll fast forward. I was in ministry college, got my degree in theology, ended up working as a youth pastor in Ohio. So full-time youth pastor, still doing door-to-door sales. I started working for a solar company back in 2014. So that was going really, really well. I ended up at 26, kind of figuring out, how old was I? This was 2016. So whatever, 24, 25. I figured out what some of y'all like 19, 20, 21-year-old studs figured out a long time before I did, which was, hey, if I was going to be working that hard and grinding that hard, I didn't want to do it to build somebody else's dream. I wanted to own it, have my name, my brand. And if I was going to take the risk and liability and the sacrifice, I wanted to have the reward too. So I started my own solar company in 2016, which is the direct question that you asked. So I was in the middle of running a solar company. We were mid-Atlantic. We started in Richmond, Virginia. We ended up being in about 17 states between mid-Atlantic and Midwest. And life was good, man. We grew it to tens of millions of dollars in a really short amount of time. Pandemic hit. I got a phone call from Gabe. Some of y'all know Gabe well. Gabe hit me up. I hadn't talked to Gabe in like 8 years, and literally like 8 years. Last I heard, he was living in Africa. I was like, man, that's cool. That's pretty wild. And in my head, like there was just like lions and snakes all over Africa. So I was like, bro, did you get bit yet? I'm just kidding. And so he hits me up and it's like, dude, I just started this life insurance company. Have you ever thought about selling life insurance? And I was like, absolutely not. And he's like, yo, I just made $8,000 last week. I made 12 grand the week before that. I was like, no way. It's like, you're full of crap. And he started sending me screenshots. And my initial reaction, you could tell him I said this. I was like, dude, Gabe kind of sucked back in the day. If Gabe's making that kind of money, I gotta figure this out. Gabe doesn't suck anymore. I'm just kidding. But I essentially, and here's another good life lesson. What I had learned at that point in my entrepreneurial life, Jonah, was if something is intriguing and it seems like it could be really great, I always give everything the benefit of the doubt in the beginning. Some people are skeptical about everything. I'm not skeptical. Now, I always want to interrogate reality. I always do my homework, do my due diligence. But if something sounds like it could be life-changing, dude, I don't want to miss out on it. So I'm like, oh, Gabe, will you fly out to me tomorrow? Literally tomorrow. I said, if I buy your ticket, will you fly to me tomorrow? And he said, yes. So literally in less than 24 hours, Gabe was sitting in my office in Richmond, Virginia, and the rest is history, John.
That's such a great story. I want to rewind for a moment here and emphasize on something that you said, which is very impactful, where you said, if you're going to quit at something when you figure it out in your head, not when you suck at it. And I think a lot of people are stuck in this perpetual loop of they find something, because let's be honest, finding a new industry, a new opportunity, a new way to make money, especially as entrepreneurs, and the majority of us on this call, it's sexy. It's sexy and it's attractive. And then you go from you're all excited and the dopamine's hitting to now you're in this valley and you suck and it's not sexy anymore and it's very tedious work and it's not what you thought. But talk to us about going through that valley, because the reason I asked that is because you have a very exploratory mindset where you're involved in a lot of businesses, you have your hands in a lot of things. But what made you stick with doing door-to-door versus just moving on to the next best thing?
Yeah, dude. So a lot of people have shiny object syndrome as entrepreneurs. They always want the newest thing, the sexiest thing. That could be really dangerous, because at the end of the day, you're going to deal with a bunch of crap no matter what industry you're in. No matter how great the opportunity is, you're going to have to dig through the mud before it gets good. So I think, for one, dude, people are like, why didn't you quit? Well, I think the number one reason I didn't quit is because I'm super competitive. And maybe, I had that chip on my shoulder. And I think that's a really positive. That's probably a really good thing. So, if you're listening in, you're like, hey, I haven't figured it out yet. Having a chip on your shoulder and just being resilient, that's one of the best character traits an entrepreneur can have, that grit. You just aren't willing to lose. You're not willing to fail. So I think that's really, really important, dude. Being exploratory, I had this conversation last night with somebody, ironically. I think there's a lot of ways you can make money in business. I think the first things first, unless you come from a wealthy family and you're a trust fund kid, which is definitely not me. I was like wearing starter sneakers from Walmart my entire life that probably didn't fit me real well. That was me. So I had to figure it out. And I didn't know this. I couldn't put it into words back then. But Jonah, your first deal, it's all sweat equity. The only way you're going to make money at anything in the beginning is sweat equity. You're going to have to work harder than everybody else around you. And you're going to have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and it's going to suck. People want to be overnight millionaires, overnight successes. Dude, I didn't break my first $200,000 year until my 5th year in direct sales. Some of y'all are going to do that in your first year. Dude, I didn't break 350 until my 6th year. I didn't break my first 7-figure year until I was doing that thing. I think it was year 8 or year 9. So like people look at it and they're like, oh, dude, you've had a lot of success. Blah, blah, blah. Dude, I was working like a dog for a lot of years, not seeing the instant gratification. Does that make sense? So like, it's really easy to look at somebody else's chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, and you're like, oh, dude, they're crushing it. Yeah, dude, my chapter 1, bro, I'm knocking on doors in the snow, not making any money. And even my chapter 3, I'm making money. And I remember, dude, vividly knocking on doors in Chicagoland. And I'm out there, dude, selling newspaper subscriptions. And like, I was crushing it, making $80,000, $90,000 a year, which at the time, when you're like 19, 20, it felt like great money. But I remember thinking, bro, I'm knocking on these doors on the north side of Chicago. These are multi-million-dollar homes. And I remember thinking, I can't get that doing this. So I don't know what my future is going to look like, but I know what I have in front of me today. And I just had the faith and belief, Jonah, truthfully. Like, dude, I remember praying as I'm walking down some of these streets. I remember like thinking about it daily. I don't know how I'm going to go from where I am to where I want to be, but I know it looks like being where I am today and doing the best that I freaking can do today. I'm going to outwork everybody in my sandbox today, and the right opportunities will present themselves. And the best news I can give any of you is if you are working your butt off and you are the freaking best at what you do today, you don't have to worry about finding the next thing, finding the best thing. It will find you. People will recognize what you're doing. They will see that you're doing it with excellence. They will want you to be working with them. Does that make sense?
100%.
Jonah,
Absolutely.
I've never gone on Indeed. I've never looked for a job. I've never looked for an opportunity once in my entire career, not one time. Every single thing that I've ever done fell in my lap, period.
It's funny, we were just having a conversation about this where the individual, we got to the point where me specifically, it's in our organization, the individuals that are filling out job ads, we almost don't want them working here. Like pretty much every single person on the Zoom call and everybody we've recruited, you were doing well in one industry and we brought you to another. And those are the people that we're looking for and we're looking to recruit 100%. And I love that you shared your mindset as to being on the doors, but I want to dig a little bit deeper before we move on. Not just your mindset, but specific thoughts that were going through your mind when you were in that valley and going through that adversity of trying to make your first sale.
I mean, dude, you're dealing with so much stress, so much anxiety, self-doubt, fear. You're questioning everything. And when you're dealing with that, it can be crippling. And I shared a post, or I shared a reel, I think last week or the week before, of Andrew Tate, who is controversial. I agree with some of his stuff and disagree with a lot of his stuff. So just to make that point. But I would say it was one of the most impactful thoughts that I've heard. And I don't know that I ever put it into words like that. And then he said it and it just clicked. And I was like, oh my God, that's it. And he said the greatest ability that an entrepreneur has is to deal with stress. How you deal with stress will ultimately decide how far you go in business. And I think that's true in sports. I think that's true in relationships. I think that's true really with everything in life. But yeah, top G, Miles, top G. But that was my first lesson, Jonah, on how to deal with stress and anxiety. And now what I figured out, and there was a portion of my life where, dude, I remember like it would, and there's no shame, by the way, in admitting that you're dealing with stress and anxiety. It's a human, we all deal with it. It's part of being human. And there was a portion of my life, a season in my life where I struggled with it, dude. Like it would cause me to not sleep properly. It would affect my output. My energy, all of it. And I wasn't the best version of myself. And here's the lesson that I learned. And you asked my mindset and what thoughts I was thinking back then. And the lesson, here it is. If you sit around thinking about stress, all you're doing is worrying. Worrying gets you nowhere. 99% of the things that you worry about are never going to happen. Not saying bad stuff doesn't happen. It does happen from time to time, but you deal with it when it happens. And the only way to not be crippled by stress and anxiety, the only way, guaranteed to work 100% of the time, is to go to work. Because when I'm putting in activity, I know that I'm digging out of a hole. I might not dig out today. I might not dig out tomorrow, but I know one step in front of the next step, in front of the next step, in front of the next step, I'm going to eventually win. So anxiety, fear, stress, that's all that stress is, anxiety and fear. Stress starts to dissipate and it disappears the second you stop thinking about it and you start working. I'm stressed. I want to have $1 million agency. I'm stressed. That seems really hard. Get on the phone, start recruiting people. I'm stressed because I don't have money to pay my bills. Get a freaking lead, get on the phone and sell a policy. Dude, every single thing that you stress about, with some exceptions, like health issues, it can be solved through hard work. And the second you figure that out is the second your wins start to compound and compound and compound and compound. And before you know it, dude, people are like, bro, you must be so stressed all the time. Dude, I'm not freaking stressed hardly ever. I outwork my stress. Like for
Here's the
real.
thing. Why does stress have
power?
Why does stress have to be a negative thing? I love stress. And
What's stress, Jonah?
I read it here. I want to actually mention one more thing. I read a statistic that said it was 94% of high performers and successful individuals have extremely high levels of anxiety. Where for me, the only way that I deal with the best way to deal with anxiety and what I've learned to deal with it is through exhaustion. You know, outwork your stress, put in effort, put in work. And because what's the alternative? To sit there stressed and do nothing? Well, that's not going to get you anywhere.
And I love what Caleb said. It shows a lack of faith in God. And the other thing is, dude, you can't lead when you're stressed. Honestly, stress is like the epitome of selfishness. Really think about it.
Yes.
So, dude, I refuse. I refuse to let fear and anxiety stop me from being the leader that God wants me to be. And I think that anyone listening in that deals with that, you legit open up your Bible, read a psalm, read 2 psalms, read 3 psalms. You watch that stress dissipate, then get off your butt and go to work. Your life will improve dramatically. There's the recipe.
100%. And I mean, at 19, I was there. So what advice would you have to the person that's on the call right now that feels like there's a dark cloud hovering over them and they can't see past tomorrow, next week, etc., and they're simply just living day to day, and to get out of that dark cloud?
Yeah, I'll make one little sidebar comment. Mental illness is a real thing. I've always been bothered by people that have been like, oh, dude, depression isn't real. Like, go out and get some vitamin D. Like, no, dude, like I've known people that deal with legitimate depression and like legitimate mental illness. I'm not talking about any of that right now. I just want to make that super, super clear. Unless it's like an actual mental illness and you're just actually dealing with anxiety, stress, fear. A couple things are true, bro. Number one, changing your actual setting does a lot for you mentally, right? I knew 18, I needed to get up and move. So I left my home with my parents. I left my hometown. I moved 1,200 miles away, and it was a brand new setting. It forced me out of my comfort zone and forced me to grow. I didn't have a choice. Does that make sense? I didn't have a choice but to put in higher levels of activity, because if I didn't, I was going to like not be able to pay my auto insurance. I couldn't pay my tuition, my room and board. I couldn't eat, couldn't put gas in my car. Like, I had no choice. Like it was like a Jedi mind trick. Like I forced myself out of my comfortable environment. I took away any opportunity to be saved by anybody else. And it was like I had to look in the mirror and legit, dude, it was scary at 18. But I was like, for the first time in my life, if I don't figure this out, I'm screwed. So I think, dude, a big part of it is some people listening in, they got plan B and plan C and plan D and plan. Go all in on something, bro. People look at me now, they're like, well, dude, that's easy for you to say. You have like 12 businesses. Yeah, dude. I had one business for the first 6 years. And every other business that I own takes zero sweat equity. It's just financial investment. Does that make sense? So like become a multimillionaire and now you make your money make money for you with zero stress and zero time. But getting the bag first is the key. And you only get the bag the first time through the hard work. It's time more than it is money. Does that make sense, Jonah?
Yes, definitely. I could not agree more. I'm a big advocate of, I mean, both things you said there, I couldn't agree with more. Where you talk about, I always share moving out of my hometown was the best decision I ever made, moving to Chicago. And also undivided attention and focus, especially as first time business owners, or if you're not already a millionaire. If you're not already a millionaire, why are you trying to do 3, 4 different things? Just focus on one thing and become the absolute best at that thing you can possibly be.
100%, dude.
100%.
And I spend 98% of my time on one business. Even now, I spend 98, 99% of my time on Pinnacle. That is it. Everything else, I throw money at it and let other people handle it. And why? Well, because, dude, I know I can control Pinnacle because I can control what I'm putting my time into. The other investments, they might win, I might lose. It's irrelevant to me. Does it make sense? But if I just said this a long time ago. If I'm gonna put my money in the stock market, guess what I'm doing, bro? I'm betting on other people to win. But I don't know those people. I don't know how hard they're working. I know how hard I'm working. I'll bet on me before I bet on you any day of the week, bro. And I hope you all feel the same exact way. If you don't, probably pretty lazy.
Facts. All right. So going back to what we were talking about. So Gabe calls you up. He's like, yo, Joe, life insurance is the way. Come out here. You fly him in. What happened after that?
I asked him 1,000 questions. What I figured out was he didn't know ish. He knew nothing because he's brand new. And honestly, dude, that was actually pretty powerful. I'm like, this dude doesn't know nothing and he's making this kind of money. I'm like, once we actually get into this sucker and figure it out, we're going to make a lot of money. You know what I mean? So like the biggest mistake I see a lot of new people make is like, I got to have all the answers before I start building a team. I got to know everything before I do. No, you don't, bro. No, you don't. You just got to get going. So he flies out. I asked him a bunch of questions. He didn't know the answers to like next to nothing. He's like, dude, all I know is I get paid this when I sell this and I get these leads and I get on the phone and this is my pitch. And I'm like, anybody could do that, which was super, super powerful for me. I was like, all right, dude, I like that. So I asked him like 1,000, like some of the questions I asked, are there territory restrictions? How do I get overrides? Leads, like how many are there? Or is there like a finite amount? Like, how does that work? Like, what's the end game? Like, I'm asking all the questions that I think everybody would have. He knew some of the answers, most he didn't know, but there was beauty in that. And the thing that really intrigued me the most about this industry was the simplicity. It's not easy, right? But it's super simple, super simple. There's very few moving parts, which I really like because it lets people master 2 or 3 things. I don't have to master 17 things. I just have to master 2 or 3, and I could be like very wealthy. Does that make sense? And so everything else that I had done, like how I created whatever amount of wealth I had at that point in my life, like it was very challenging. It was very complex. There were a lot of moving parts. And because of all that, it was very difficult to replicate myself and others. Does that make sense? And so the intriguing part of this industry was, shoot, you could really replicate yourself quickly, which is the game. That is the game in human capital and wealth building. How fast can you replicate yourself and your skill set and other people? And I've never seen that anywhere like I saw it in the insurance space. So I got my license in mid to late 2020. I tried very, very hard to continue to run my solar company full time and do this. And what I figured out was the Bible ain't wrong, per usual. No man can serve 2 masters. And so I ended up in February of 21, like Turner just said, burning the boats, going all in on insurance, which was super risky for me because I had spent a lot of time building that other company. And I had all of my net worth in that business at the time. But I just believed so fervently in this that I was willing to go all in on it. So February 21, I just hit 3 years a couple months ago, and I'd say it's been a productive 3 years, Jonah.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's powerful. That's powerful as too, because you were in a situation where you're doing good. You're obviously making a lot of money and you're successful. And really the way I saw it was, and I think this speaks for a lot of people on this call, where you made the decision where you were willing to go from something where you're doing good to something you're going to have valleys, you're going to have adversity, but eventually to something great.
Dude, yeah. And the biggest thing for me was I genuinely knew I could affect way more people in this industry than I could in the other one. Does that make sense? Like, dude, I promise you, if I was still in solar today, like I'm just looking, like Bailey, who I think is like super great dude. Bailey, I wouldn't be working with Bailey. I would have no idea who he was. We wouldn't be working together, right? Like Miles and I would not have met. Like I think that we're going to be in a position, me personally, right? They say the mark of a great leader is not leading followers, it's leading great leaders. And I was leading followers. I just got tired of leading followers. And it was like, I want to be in a position where, yeah, dude, great. I was in Cabo a few times a year and I'm in Cancun a few times a year. And at that point, my life was pretty easy. And then, dude, it got freaking boring. Easy is boring. Like, if you think you're trying to work for an easier life, I'm telling you right now, you'll get tired of it in like 90 days, I promise. Like you want you want a challenge, and you want to be in a position where you're working with other great leaders. And for me, dude, the best part about this is that I get to work with people like you, dude, who, dude, you're an amazing leader in your own right. We're just blessed to get to partner together, truthfully. And my job is to provide value. I say it all the time. Business in any way, shape, or form, whether it's vendor to client, whether it's salesperson to client, whether it's vendor to vendor, any situation, it's leveraging value. My job is to provide value to you in some way, shape, or form and continue to be valuable. And in a business like this, dude, we get to share value all day, every day. And if we do that, guess what we're going to do, Jonah? We're going to make millionaire after millionaire after millionaire after millionaire. And it's not just you becoming a multimillionaire. It's not just everybody on this call become. We could legitimately create hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of multimillionaires in the next decade. And we're going to. We are going to.
1000%. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And that actually leads me right into my follow-up question I was going to ask you. How many hours a week do you work, Okay.
I don't count them because I don't get paid hourly, but
Did you say?
I'm working at least 70 most weeks. And on some weeks, I'm working closer to 90, which some of y'all are like can't even fathom. But I mean that. Like, dude, I took my first call at 7 a.m. this morning. I was on the phone at 12:30 this morning with somebody in California. I was on the phone all day yesterday. I'm in the office usually 10 to 12 hours a day. I'm in the office on Saturdays for usually 6, 7 hours. Right now, in the last 4 or 5 months, I've actually opened up my calendar for Sunday afternoons. I work 3 to 4 hours Sunday afternoons in between church services. Bro, there's too much to get done. There's too much to get done. Time is money. I love what I do. Truthfully, I freaking love it. So I work a lot. I think that I love what I do. The challenge, of course, is that your loved ones have to also learn to love it because I made the decision. My son didn't make the decision. So that's the hardest part. We start having kids. You got to try and balance that. And, I think that for me, I've learned if you want to do something exceptional and you want to do something above average, you can't live an average lifestyle and you can't work average hours. You have to be an exceptional human being. Being an exceptional human being isn't about who you are, it's about what you do. Does that make sense? So for me, bro, it's like I had to like get the people around me that are closest to me, like my family, my wife, my son, my parents, my siblings. Well, I'm very close to. I got a strong Italian family from New Jersey. I had to get them to understand nothing about my life. There was a point of no return. Some of you are staring at that point of no return right now, and you're trying to make the decision if it's worth it. I remember when I hit that point of no return, and everyone around me was like, "Because, dude, there are a lot of people in your inner circle that are average." I hate to say that. All of us have that. They're average people living average lives, and they're happy with that. And by the way, if you're happy being average, you should be average. There's nothing wrong with that. I couldn't be happy being average. Does that make sense? And that's the mark of an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs cannot be happy. You will have a void. You will have something missing. You will be miserable being average. That's how you know if you're supposed to be doing what we're doing. Does that make sense? If you could be happy freaking sleeping 10 hours a day and like, I'll just stop there with a lot of other bad habits and you're happy doing that, then hey, bro, this probably isn't for you. But I remember the moment when I realized like, hey, no, I'm going all, this is who I'm going to be, not just for a year, not for 3 years. I don't have an exit plan. This is who I'm going to be for the rest of my freaking life. And dude, that was the most freeing moment I ever had in my entire life. When I finally figured out, like I remember when I was like 22, I was like, yo, dude, I'm gonna do this till I'm 30. I'm gonna have $10 million in the bank and then I'm gonna cut out.
Now you're 30.
Now they'll be 33. And dude, what's wild is this. That caused me stress. Thinking about the exit caused me so much stress. And then the moment, and dude, I just sat down. I spent 7 hours 2 weeks ago with a dude that's worth about $400 million. We spent 7 hours, deep conversation. And he said, and it clicked for me too. He said his whole life, it was when I turned 30, when I turned 40, when I turned 50. I think he's now 58. And he said, dude, the best day of my life when I made the decision, I'm going to work until I die because that's the only way that I'm happy. And I'm not saying I'm going to work until I die. What I am saying is I don't think about anything other than I want to be exceptional until I die. So what is that going to look like? I have no idea. But I never want to live an average life. And because I'm never going to live an average life, I'm never going to have an average schedule. I'm never going to be a traditional, husband, father. Like that is what it is. I've accepted that. That's my lot in life. That's my calling. And if that's the way you think, that's the way you feel, lean into it and make sure you get your family on board and make sure you make it worth it for them. Take them along with you. You don't have to choose family or business, family or entrepreneurship. You take them freaking with you. And don't lie to yourself or lie to them. I remember when I was lying to myself and lying to them. Another 3 years, another 3 years, another 2 years. Now I'm like, hey, this is who I am. This is who we are. And this is what we're going to do. And it's become a lot more enjoyable. Does that make sense?
Boom. If we were on Brad Leo, I would have dropped a bomb right there. That was fire. let's let's transition a little bit. Talk to us about, obviously we just officially launched Pinnacle publicly. Everybody's super amped. We're extremely excited to see what takes place the next upcoming months, upcoming years. Obviously, Joe, we're working on a few different things, but for everybody in this call, talk to us first of all about what is the vision of Pinnacle.
I think I gave you just a little glimpse of it just now. When I think about Pinnacle, we live in what I call an IBO industry, independent business owner industry, right? So you're all independent business owners, which I think is freaking amazing. So if you're going to be an independent business owner and work within a network of other independent business owners, call them uplines, downlines, cross lines, I don't care what you want to call them. We're all business partners. Does that make sense? Jonah, the only way that works is if you trust the people above you. Does that make sense? So when I think about the vision of what Pinnacle is going to be and what Pinnacle is today, I think about a lot of different things. And I'm always careful because some of you have heard me talk about this before. And I never want it to be like Groundhog Day. Like, Joe, I heard you say that before. Some of that's going to happen because it's the vision. The vision doesn't change. But for me, creating an environment and establishing an environment and then policing that environment to ensure things don't ever change, where you know for a fact the people working alongside of you are there to provide value and help you reach your goals. That for me is critical. You can sell life insurance, Jonah, all over the country in lots of different organizations. You and I are recruiting all day, every day. We talk to insurance salespeople, and you say, well, what's the difference between X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all these different companies? At the end of the day, when you boil it down, right, you can get comp anywhere. If you're a killer and you're going to put up volume, you're going to end up at the same comp anywhere you go. That's the truth. Leads are leads. Here's a big asterisk next to leads are leads. Is the company going to be honest with what leads are exclusive, which leads are not? Is the company going to force you to buy certain leads? Those things matter. And Pinnacle is never, ever, ever going to have a lack of transparency in where leads are coming from. We're never, ever, 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 ever going to say, hey, Ethan, you have to buy leads from Pinnacle vendor. Dude, create your own leads, work with any vendor you want to in the country. Don't work leads at all. Go knock on doors. I don't care. My job is to support you and your vision for how you want to run your business, period. But we're going to do that with the right principles, the right ethics, the right morals, period. Like, Jonah, to me, I hear all the time, dude, there's so many bad people in X industry. There's so many bad people in Y industry. No, dude, there's so many great people. There's so many great people in the life insurance industry. So my goal is to assemble a ton of great people because a rising tide raises all ships. And so, dude, I'm not great at a lot of things. I'm great at a couple things. The reason that I've had some decent success at my age, Jonah, I've made a living out of doing just a few things that I'm great at. And then I try to surround myself with people that are great at the things that I'm not great at. Does that make sense? And so that's the beauty of an organization like this. Like, if I know I need X, Y, and Z, I know who's great at everything. And that's the power of having great business partners in an environment like this. So core vision. Who are we? Where are we today? Where are we going? We're super crystal clear on what all of that looks like. If you want me to underline it, underscore it, I think that we're going to be a massive, give us 5 to 10 years. We will be the largest IMO in the life insurance space, but that's not my dream and goal. My dream and goal is to have the most profitable business partners in the life insurance industry by a long shot. quality of business. Guess what the carriers love? Yes, they need volume, but they really need quality of business. We want to keep our QOB super, super high, high persistency, high profitability. You can tell the health of an organization when you look at how much premium their average agent is issuing. Through 2023, our agency as a whole, our average agent was issuing usually on an average month between $15,000 and $17,000.
It's huge.
No one else in the industry is doing that. No one else in the industry is doing that. So when I look at it, Jonah, you say, what does that stem from? It stems from A, recruiting the right sorts of people. That's a big deal. Good onboarding and training systems. I think that's really, really important. Transparency in your lead program, right? And then support. What kind of, staff support, technology support, et cetera, is the company offering to help you win? We are in the process of developing a lot on the tech side to make a frictionless situation with as much integration as possible for every agent that comes into Pinnacle. In the next 12 months, some of the technology that will be dropped is going to be game changing. We're dumping a lot of money into it. We're not scared to invest into the agents, into the future. Dude, I mean this. I don't care if I make $1 from Pinnacle this year, next year, the year. It's irrelevant to me. I want people to win, truthfully, and we're going to invest into that because that's how we're going to win long term. When I think about what Pinnacle is going to be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, it's because of some of the investments that we're making today that are going to bear fruit. Does that make sense? So when I think about underscore most profitable agents, most profitable agency owners, structure is key, resources and tools. Those are the things that are going to lead to that long-term sustainable profitability. And if people are profitable, guess what they don't do, Joe? They don't leave. They stay. They want to plant their flag and build their business where they get good leadership that isn't trying to screw them over, honesty, integrity, the tools, the resources they need to grow their business and help a new agent go from zero to profitable in as short amount of time as possible. Does that make sense?
100%. Absolutely. I know obviously you got a lot of stuff in the works. Are you able to say anything or announce anything on this call? Or do we need to save it?
We're going to save it because timeframes never work out the way the developers say they're going to work out. So I don't want to get anybody too excited. What I will say is this. We're working on something right now, and I'm not going to give you any time frame. It could be 30 days. It could be 3 months. It could be 9 months. You're going to have to just wait and find out. But we are working on something right now where I want it to be free for the agent. I don't want to charge the agent anything. But I was at a business leader event in the InsurTech space, and they did a 1 million lead case study. So they took 1 million leads over 6 months and did a case study. And they found something that I think is pretty interesting, which is the importance of speed to lead in the digital age. Now, some of y'all are primarily working mail, whether it's new, fresh mail, second chance mail. We're all for that. Obviously, you can be very, 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 very profitable on second chance mail. And speed to lead is obviously not relevant when you're working a lead that's 3 months old or 6 months old or 12 months old, etc. But some of y'all, like I'll pick on Derek, right? Derek, bro, you might want to build an agency doing $3 million a month, or $5 million a month, or $10 million a month, right? Do you think that you're going to be able to do that with second chance mortgage mail? Absolutely not is the answer, if anybody's confused. Absolutely not. Every single year, mail costs get higher and return rates get lower. That's happened every year for like 15 years. Do we think in 2024 or 25 or 26 that's going to improve? No, it's not. It's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse, which means the digital lead has never been more important. But the entire industry for the last 50 years, 60 years has worked direct mail leads. So the average agent is not extremely proficient yet, Jonah, working a digital lead. So what resources can we use, can we put into place that will make the conversion of a digital lead significantly higher with less, like substantially less work for an average agent? So we're working on some things that will accomplish that. Give you more time to build your business, less time on the phone, more sits. More sits lead to more closes lead to more money leads to more growth. So hopefully that's enough of a teaser for everybody listening in, Jonah. But that is, I think about it from the second I wake up to the second I go to sleep. How could I make the agent experience for everybody better? And it always boils down to what technology can we employ where we can reduce friction. I don't want an agent having to log into 6 different portals, one to dial their leads, one to text their leads, one to quote the app, one to submit an app, one to check their number. We want to integrate everything into one and create an all-around better agent experience. So that is what we're laser focused on. And I basically am giving people a freaking blank check to figure this out, because that to me is what the future of Pinnacle is. That. And
Yes.
And it doesn't stop there, Jonah, because technology is evolving and changing rapidly, right? I'll give this last analogy. Some of y'all have met me in person, so you know. I'm not a man of great stature physically. However, I played sports growing up. I played football, I played basketball from 5th to 12th grade. And surprisingly, I'm decently athletic. Thank God. At least he made me coordinated. Got some of that. But every sport that I ever played, and I also play like weird sports. I played random sports. I played tennis, whatever. Every coach I ever had, Jonah, you know what they said constantly? Don't plant your feet. I don't care what sport you're playing. The second you plant your feet, you lost your edge, you're losing the game every time. Can't plant your feet. You got to keep your feet moving. There was never a greater lesson for an entrepreneur. The second you plant your feet, you're already losing to a competitor. So business evolves, business changes. That's not going to change. You can't get frustrated by that. If I had $1 for every time I had an entrepreneur, whining that something changed. Bro, yeah, it's going to keep changing. Change isn't a bad thing. Change is a good thing. Embrace it and figure out how to win. Does that make sense? So we're going to stay on the cutting edge. We're going to stay innovative. We're going to keep dumping money into it. Period. With the sole focus, how do we get more profit for our average agent? How do we reduce friction, increase integration? That's what you're going to see more and more and more and more and more of in the coming months and coming years.
The way I see it is like we're like a chameleon. We're constantly shifting, growing, evolving, because it's in a crazy fast and growing industry. And then Caleb, to answer your question, we have a meeting regarding that here in an hour. So we're working on it. But let's in the last 7 minutes of this call, let's open it up for a Q&A. So anybody on this call, feel free to unmute and hit Joe with whatever question you got. Caleb, you got something to say?
Caleb got beef.
I want to see about the watches in the back. Every time I see your video, I see the watches in the back. Is it because time is money? Tell me about it. What's the...
My grandfather passed away when I was 12. We were super, super, super close, and he was a watch collector and got me onto watches when I was like 5 or 6. And so I was like the only 8-year-old I knew that had like 20 watches. So I fell in love with timepieces at a young age, and now I'm quite the avid watch collector. So, I'm just a big fan. I think timepieces are beautiful. I think they're precise. I think that it's an art. I'm not a very artsy guy, but that's my thing.
No,
got
that's
some sexy watches.
awesome. Appreciate everything you do for us, Jeff.
Buck. My favorite watchmaker and the watch that I love the most are two different things. Because I also balance the fact that I like a good deal. So the best investment for me have always been Rolex watches. So it's attainable. It's an everyman watch. Rolex has beat market, real estate, and gold in the last 20 years. Just crazy. And Rolex, this is a unknown fact to a lot of people, but Rolex is a non-profit organization. I don't know who they know and what babies they kissed, but they figured that out.
It's funny, we were just having a conversation yesterday about that. How they donate their profits to a charity to evade taxes. So Rolex doesn't pay any taxes.
Caleb said he's called and texted me for weeks. Caleb, you probably don't have my number, bro, because I don't have any calls or texts from you. Well, I'll put it this way. I definitely don't have any texts from you. But if you call me on a number I don't have, well, Jonah, send me Caleb's number, please.
Yes, I will. We'll do.
I really try to
I
get
did.
back.
I did have a question though. That was my personal question. So as far as like reinvesting in the business, I've actually talked to a couple of people about just like where you put, your profits, right? Well, you put in the thing that gets you the most return on your investment, right? Which is right now the business, of course. So I'm kind of like in between, like, where do I put my money as far as like growing an agency or like advancing myself on personal production? Like, what is your take as far as like how much you put into like recruiting, training agents, coaching, as opposed to like reinvesting in yourself, whether it's like a dialer or passive booking? Like, how do you balance those two, like reinvestments and figuring out what the return on your investment would be?
That's an excellent question. I think, dude, number one, you got to put your own mask on before you can help put somebody else's mask on. So you always got to make sure personally you're good, your bills are paid. And I know you know that, Anthony, but I'm saying that for anyone new listening in. Make sure that you're good financially before you're trying to invest a ton of money into building a team. I think at some point there's like if you're netting $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a month in personal sales, which Anthony, you're a killer. So I'm sure you're doing pretty well. Up until 3 years ago, my monthly nut was under $6,000. I'm talking like I lived dirt cheap. I drove a Honda or a Toyota. I had like up until a few years ago. So I just kept my bills super, 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 super low so that I could keep pouring into the future. In this business, Anthony, if I was starting right now, and I'm like, how do I balance that? I do think that I would get to the place where I was automating different parts of my business to buy myself time. That's going to cost you a little bit of money on the personal side of things, whether it be AI text, whether it be a dialer. You can talk with Jonah and figure out what makes the most sense with your specific situation there. But I would start branding myself on social media. Every good recruit that has come into our business in the last 18 months has come from social media. All of them. Like all of them. So social media is everything. And what's wild is you don't got to spend a crazy amount of money on it. Like legitimately. You could start to slowly brand yourself, get some organic followers. I'd get with like a good videographer and like type out your scripts. They'll throw it on a teleprompter for you. Probably cost you $1,000 or $1,500 for like 3 months worth of content. Get it to a VA that'll edit it for you. You could probably invest For under $4,000, what you can do to your social media would be insane. And then get a VA that costs next to nothing to send out 50 messages a day, or you do it for free. So like I tell it, it's not like you got to dump crazy amounts of money into something. Once you start finding the right people, Anthony, it's quality over quantity. Jonah's team has been the telltale sign of that, right? Quality, find a really good agent. And then my big thing with my social media reach outs, obviously I've become substantially more busy in the last few months, so I haven't been doing it as much personally anymore. But for a good while, I would have a
Thank God.
VA that would send out 50 messages a day, right? Usually out of 50 messages, we were looking for people in solar, pest control, auto sales, or home security sales specifically. Yeah, LinkedIn is awesome, wherever. But whoever would respond, usually about 5 to 10 people a day would respond. Now, half of them would say something stupid. And then a couple of them would have something of interest. I would never just text a response back. I would either record a quick selfie of me, 60 seconds, and send that, or I'd record a voice memo and say their name and like make it personal.
Yes.
Like those are little things that will change your conversion rate dramatically. And like, dude, you don't need to hire a recruiter for $5,000 a month and this. On a budget, you'd be shocked how fast you can grow. And then what we've gotten really, 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 really good at is hire one cold. So like, Buck, you'd be an example of a cold market hire, but then get to your warm market, because your warm market, Anthony, is just as good as my warm market. So every time you hire a high quality person, you're cloverleafing that agent. In sales, you guys have heard of cloverleafing, right? So then you cloverleaf that agent and get to their top 5, their starting 5. And then you get to their starting 5. You get to their starting 5. Most people aren't doing that consistently. That's why they're not growing. But I guarantee your results doing that would be 10 to 50 times higher than if you hired a recruiter to post ads on Indeed or whatever that might look like. So that, dude, doesn't take you a ton of time. It doesn't take you a ton of money. And you're still able to focus on your personal sales for cash flow. And then I built the comp structure very intentionally so that anybody that gets on the building structure, anybody that gets to $500,000 a month in volume with the right structure, dude, you're pulling in 1.2 minimal without personal production. If you're pulling in 1.2, it's like $100,000 a month. I'm not saying you have to stop selling. I want people to be able to stop selling and full-time focus on their agency building when they get to $500,000 a month as a team. So that's kind of the benchmark that I had in mind with the Pinnacle comp and building structure, if that makes sense.
Joe, very briefly, can you screen share your screen and can we go over the comp structure with Pinnacle?
I'm making sure I have time.
Okay. And also, it's funny regarding your social media outreach. It was the amount of people I would direct message. They're like, "Yeah, I already talked to Joe Basso," or "Do you know a Joe Basso? Do you work with him?" I'd be like, yeah. So your social media outreach was legit when you were going hard on it.
Dude, it freaking works. It works because to the point we made earlier, dude, I'm not looking for a job. Most of the people on this call were already making good money prior. They weren't on job boards looking for a job. So you got to find the people that are already successful, making money somewhere else. And then there's finesse, right? If I talk to, I'm like, I need you to go all in and burn the boats day one, Jonah. Of course not. I want to like buy the girl a drink before you're trying to do something stupid. Like, come on. You got to like, it's like catching a fish. So you got to give and take a little bit in those conversations. Most of the killers that we've brought on, it was like, hey, let's get you a license and see if we can get you some overrides. I'm messing with you, Anthony. but let's get people paid. When the average person in door to door, I don't care what the industry is, when they see how amazing the cash flow is here and how fast we get paid, how there's so few variables, the override structure, once they actually see it, they're in. But most people are hesitant when they're already making money to make a giant leap. So Jonah, dude, I have a 2 o'clock that I'm 4 minutes late for. But
Yes, all good.
get me on in the next week or two, and we'll just do a deep dive in the building structure and how I would build it if I was starting from scratch.
Yes, let's make it happen. Let's also go over that this next week when you're out here in Chicago at the lock-in.
I'm in, dude.
So cool. Joe, well, we appreciate you, dude. We appreciate you, and a lot of us will see you next week.
Can't wait, guys. Talk to y'all real soon.
All right. And then just a friendly reminder before everybody goes, we have anybody coming to lock-in, we have a 3:30